Good morning and welcome to another motorcycling video. It's about 6 o'clock in the morning on Thursday the 31st of October 2024, and I'm just out heading out to the place where I want to start my morning run. I don't have a specific subject I want to talk about today, so I'm just going to talk about a few things that come up to do with riding the Spyder and a little bit about Goulburn as I go along. So first things first, this is a 2012 Spyder Can-Am Spyder RT Limited. It's a 5-speed semi-automatic with two wheels at the front, for those who are unfamiliar with the Spyders, and one wheel at the back. It is belt driven, and the front wheels are about as wide apart as a small hatch, is how I like to describe them. Now, one of the things that's interesting about riding the Spyder is if you've never ridden a two-wheel motorcycle, it's not a lot for you to learn because you don't have any habits you've already got to unlearn. But if you've ridden a two-wheel motorcycle, there's a lot to unlearn. When I made that turn from my street to this road I'm on now, I made a right-hand turn. And when you're making a right-hand turn in the Spyder, there's a couple of things that you've got to do. Because the bike has two wheels that are fairly wide apart and they have independent suspension, not fork suspension, the bike doesn't tilt and it doesn't lean. So when you want to go around a corner, there's a few things that you have to do. When you're turning right, you're making a full 90-degree turn. So you need to, there's a force that the physicists will have a proper name for, but I'm not sure what it is, but it tends to want to push you back on the bike and towards the left-hand side of the motorcycle. So to counteract that, when you're turning right, you need to lean forward and to the right, mainly with your shoulder, your right shoulder, and you need to turn your head fully in the direction that you want the bike to go. You also need to gently pull with your right arm and push with your left arm. Now I say gently because this bike has what's DPS, which is dynamic power steering, and it will go around the corner easily. You don't have to do that pulling and pushing as a strong, powerful motion, but you just need to do a fine balance between pulling the right handlebar towards you and pushing the left one away from you at the same time, so that the bike will go around the corner. Now you've probably noticed already at least one roundabout, and there's another one coming up here, so I'll just talk about roundabouts on a minute, because Goulburn has lots of roundabouts, and some of us refer to Goulburn as the city of roundabouts. There are some rules about roundabouts. If you're going straight through on a roundabout, there's probably not a lot to do except lean slightly forward and make that gentle movement towards the right-hand side of the bike. But there is a rule in New South Wales, at least, it says when you are leaving the roundabout, you're supposed to indicate with your left indicator that you're going off the roundabout. Now that can be difficult because the first exit is always on your left, so you have to wait till you're sort of halfway around that one before you put on the left indicator, and by the time you do that, you're already off the roundabout. There's a fine for it. I don't know how much it is, and I'm sure there are some demerit points attached to it, and I'm not sure how often people are fined for it or how rigidly it's enforced, but it is the law that when you're turning, when you're on a roundabout, you're supposed to use your left blinker to indicate that you are leaving the roundabout. Now we'll talk about making a left-hand turn shortly, because I know there's another roundabout coming up at the bottom of this road, and I'll be making a left-hand turn. So the process is similar, but there are some slight differences. So Goulburn is a city in southwest New South Wales. For those who live outside Australia, it's about 200 kilometres southwest of Sydney and about 100 kilometres north on the Federal and Hume Highway from Canberra. It was Australia's first inland city. Now, just making a left-hand turn here, you see, because I'm turning left here, I'm not going to be needing to necessarily make a full 90-degree turn as you would if you were turning right or if you were taking the third exit on that roundabout. So the process, although it's the same, in other words, you lean to the left because you lean your body forward into the left to counteract the force that's going to push you back into the right, and you push with your right arm and pull with your left arm at the same time. You probably don't have to do that to the same extent as you would if you were turning right. And the reason for that is because, as I said, you're not making a full 90-degree turn in the first instance. And secondly, because we drive on the left of the road in Australia and the road is cambered from the centre to the left, so that water will drain off it, the whole turn process is a little easier. But you still need to lean slightly forward and to the left to counteract the force that's going to try and push you back into the right. Now, if you see this roundabout that I'm coming up to now, this issue with indicating that you're turning left, if you indicated that you were turning left, people behind you would assume that you were going to take the first exit. That is this one here, but in actual fact you're going to go straight through the roundabout and take the second exit. And there really is nowhere to go except around back to it the way you came, but you're still supposed to indicate that you're turning left that you're leaving the roundabout by putting on your left blinker. Okay, so we were talking about Goulburn. Now, Goulburn was Australia's first inland city. The other cities before that were either on the coast. There would have been cities like Sydney and Melbourne and Hobart and so forth. And they were established and became cities just by virtue of the size that they were at the time. In the case of Goulburn, it was declared a city by what was called royal patent. And at that time, Queen Victoria was the Queen, and she issued a series of documents which are called royal patents that said that Goulburn could refer to itself as a city. It had, and still has, two cathedrals, an Anglican cathedral, or a Church of England cathedral, and a Catholic cathedral, and generally the presence of a cathedral, of at least one cathedral, is a reason to designate a regional centre as a city. But Goulburn at the time had two cathedrals, and of course Canberra wasn't even a blip on the radar at the time Goulburn was declared a city. Goulburn is the centre of a fine merino wool growing area, and for a long, long time the economy was built around servicing that industry. There were all sorts of agricultural services, stock and station agents as they were once called, and businesses like that were there to service the farming economy, the agricultural economy. And there still are those businesses, and the fine wool growing area is still a big feature. You may be familiar with the big merino, known as Rambo. If you've come into McDonald's from the Canberra end, come into Goulburn from the Canberra end, as if you're going into McDonald's or somewhere like that to get some food, you'll see the big concrete merino. So there still are many things that are associated with the fine wool industry, but like all economies, we've had to diversify. And I would say, just my own, if you like, intuition rather than formal research suggests that retail and hospitality are big employers in Goulburn. Although there are empty shops in the main street, there are lots of cafes and restaurants, and I guess they're all making money but struggling to make money. I would imagine that another big employer in Goulburn is the government. That'll be the New South Wales government, because for example, there are 7 public primary schools in New South Wales, in Goulburn. For those in the States, I think what we call a primary school, you would call an elementary school. So there are 7 of those in Goulburn. There are 2 government high schools. There is a TAFE, that is Technical and Further Education College, and then there is a universities centre as well, where there's no teaching goes on, but there is help in getting people enrolled and completing their enrolments and helping them with research and so on. There is also the New South Wales Police Academy. All of those people who work there are employed by the government. We've just had a new $40 million hospital built. I think it took about 3.5 years, maybe 4 years to complete that, and there's quite a large number of staff. I don't exactly know how many nurses and doctors and so on there are, but there's quite a large number of staff work there, and obviously they're on the government payroll as well. Well, I'm talking about schools. I mentioned the public schools, but then there are 2 Catholic primary schools and a Catholic high school. It is a co-ed school that goes from year 7 to 12. And then there are a couple of independent schools as well. So I think we're well serviced as far as education goes. Other employees in Goulburn, besides, as I said, those that service the rural industries of various sorts and hospitality and retail and education and other government employment, would include, I think, light fabrication. That is, there are various small factories where metal and things are fabricated, like canopies for trucks and utes and that sort of thing. Very big at the moment. There's several new housing estates have been approved in the last few years, and there's another 2 in the works at the moment. There are lots of earthworks going on with those housing estates. So once that is completed and the services and the roads are built, then of course the blocks will be marked out, and there'll be lots of work for tradesmen in cottage construction. That of course involves carpenters, electricians, plumbers, tilers, roof tilers, and various other associated trades. And there seem to be lots of builders and sparkies and plumbers and so on at the moment, and they all seem to be very busy. And if you have an emergency situation with your plumbing and you need a plumber, you've often got to wait a couple of days before that person can come to you. So they're all very busy at the moment. One of the other industries that I forgot to mention, or places of employment that I forgot to mention, which will be coming up very shortly at the end of this street, is the Goulburn Correctional Centre, otherwise known as the Goulburn Jail, which houses the maximum security section as well as just general population. I don't know how many prisoners there are, and I don't know how many staff there are, but it's a fairly big building, and I imagine there's a fair number of staff, both in terms of those who guard the prisoners and those who provide services to them, such as counselling and education and so on and so forth. Goulburn is pretty well served in terms of its transportation links, although they could always be better. There are trains on a regular basis to and from Sydney and to Canberra. There's a daily bus service, I think, that goes to Canberra in the morning and a return service in the afternoon. The roads to major centres from Goulburn are fairly well maintained. There is the Hume Federal Highway, as I said, that takes you to Canberra. There's the Hume Highway that takes you north to Sydney. And then there is the Braidwood Road, as it's called, which then joins the King's Highway and takes you to the east coast. All right, well, I'm about to the end of this journey, so thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the commentary and all the scenery, and you've learned something about Goulburn, and thanks for watching. And if you have any comments, please feel free to add them when the video is uploaded.